Welcome back. You're watching NewsX. I'm Meenakshi Upreti. Next up is our episode number 6. It's a special on the much touted Jal Jeevan Mission. Har Ghar Jal, Har Ghar Nal. That's the slogan given by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. 3 years since the Jal Jeevan Mission was launched, we get you ground reality from across the country to know if clean tap water has reached every rural household in the country.
मोदी सरकार की बड़ी योजनाओं में नल जल योजना रायपुर में भी सफल साबित हो रहा है। हम अभी धरसीवा विधानसभा के इलाके में खड़े हैं और जो यहाँ की स्थिति है और जो पहले की स्थिति थी कि लोगों को नल जल योजना का लाभ नहीं मिल रहा था, घरों में नल कनेक्शन नहीं था। चूँकि अब नल कनेक्शन लग गए हैं तो अब लोगों को आराम हो रहा है, अब उनको दूर नहीं जाना पड़ रहा है।
मोदी जी की जो योजना है घर घर में नल, जैसे प्रधानमंत्री नल योजना है, बहुत अच्छा है। हर घर में प्राय पानी आ रहा है, सफिशिएंट है पानी की समस्या हमारे यहाँ वार्ड में नहीं है।
हाँ, फुल पानी आ रहा था।
अब कोई दिक्कत नहीं?
कोई दिक्कत नहीं।
पहले दिक्कत होता था?
हाँ, पहली दिक्कत।
अब बहुत सुविधा हो गया है। अब घर में नल पानी बाहर से लाते थे, वो सब का सुविधा है। आराम से पानी भर लेते हैं, घर में नहाना वाना सब हो जाते हैं।
बहुत अच्छा स्थिति हो गया, घरों घर नल लगाया तो अच्छा आ रहा पानी।
पहले की स्थिति के हिसाब से नल जल योजना के हिसाब से तो अभी अच्छी है पानी की। पहले उसका सुविधा नहीं था, तो सुविधा होगा तो इसके हम लोगों को बहुत सुविधा मिल रही है।
पहले क्या है, बहुत किल्लत होता था पानी का, क्योंकि कभी वो आता था पानी, कभी कम आता था, कभी आता ही नहीं था बिल्कुल। तो जब से मोदी जी वाला जो जल क्या नाम से अमृत मिशन वाला जो लगा, वो बराबर पानी आ रहा है सुबह शाम, सुबह हाँ टाइम टू टाइम बिल्कुल। अभी कोई दिक्कत नहीं।
From Raipur, now let's shift our focus to Jalaun in Uttar Pradesh. We have filed a ground report from there as well. Let's take a look at that report first.
बुंदेलखंड का नाम सुनते ही दिलो दिमाग पर सूखे की तस्वीर सामने आती है। अगर हम बात करें जालौन की, तो जालौन में जल जीवन मिशन के तहत हर घर जल हर घर नल योजना चलाई जा रही है, जिससे लाभार्थियों को उसका लाभ मिल रहा है। इसी की तस्वीर जानने के लिए पहुंचे हैं जालौन के हरक्का गांव में। यहाँ पर कुछ महिलाएं जो हैं वो मौजूद हैं। पहले आप तस्वीरों में दिखाना चाहेंगे किस तरीके से ये जो नल हैं हर जल जीवन मिशन के तहत हर घर नल, हर घर योजना के तहत हर घर नल पहुँचाए जा रहे हैं, जहाँ पर लोगों को स्वच्छ पानी आसान तरीके से पहुँच जाए। इसके अलावा इनकी बीमारियों से बचाया जा सके।
पानी की बहुत समस्या पहले थी, हम लोग सब लोग बाहर बहुत दूर तक पानी भरने जाते थे। अब अपने यहाँ मोदी ने अच्छा काम किया है कि नल लगवा दिए हैं, इसलिए हम लोग अब सब लोग बीमारियों से बचने लगे हैं, अच्छा पानी मिलने लगा।
पानी की व्यवस्था हमारे यहाँ बहुत अच्छी है। पहले जरूर परेशान लोग रहते थे, अब तो अब परेशानी दूर हो गई है।
कब लगाएगा ये नल?
नल लग गए हों, बिलाती ना हो गए नहीं। पानी जब से नल लग गए तब से बराबर पानी आता है।
पहले क्या परेशानी आती थी आपको
पानी भरने में? क्या परेशानी आती थी, टाइम वेस्ट हो तो नहीं। और
कहाँ से भरते थे पानी आप?
कुएं से, नल से।
अब पानी की क्या व्यवस्था की गई?
अब तो बहुत अच्छी व्यवस्था हो गई है, सरकार ने जो भी करो बहुत अच्छी करो। और अब तो हमें
क्या पानी समय से मिलता है?
खूब समय से पानी मिलता है, सुबह से लेकर 4 बजे तक बराबर पानी आता है।
पानी क्वालिटी कैसी है?
बहुत साफ स्वच्छ है।
हाँ, हमारे हर घर में नल लग चुके हैं, इससे हमें काफ़ी सुविधाएं मिली हैं। पहले हमें नल पे पानी भरने जाना पड़ता था, काफ़ी टाइम बर्बाद होता था। हमारे हर घर में नल लग चुके हैं। पहले हम कभी किताबों में पढ़ते थे कि हमें स्वच्छ पानी पीना चाहिए, अब हमें घर पर ही बैठ के मिलता है पानी, कहीं से भी भर सकते हैं। घर बैठे यही सुविधा मिली है। हम सरकार को काफ़ी मानते हैं, सम्मान करते हैं कि हमें यही सुविधा मिली। मतलब जो टाइम की बर्बादी होती थी वो अब नहीं हो रही है।
पानी की अब बहुत सारी व्यवस्था बहुत अच्छी हो चुकी है, घर घर में नल लग चुके हैं और साफ पानी आता है। पहले तो हम लोग 20 रुपए की बोतल लेते थे, खर्च करते थे, अब घर में बहुत अच्छा सब कुछ पानी आने लगा।
All right, we just heard what the beneficiaries of the scheme had to say. Let's open this up for a discussion. Being joined by Mahesh Gupta, Kent RO CEO. We're also being joined by Anand Arya. He's an environmentalist. Rajesh Agrawal, a civil engineer, also with us. Sumitra Goenka, social issue expert, also with us. Rishabh Gulati, managing editor of NewsX, also with us. I'm going to come to you first, Rishabh. We heard all these testimonies of the beneficiaries. Universal access to drinking water, something which people like us living in the cities take for granted. It was an eye-opener on how difficult it had been for these people living in rural areas earlier. Clearly, this scheme has made a marked difference in their lives, as was visible in those reactions, those testimonies and ground reports which our colleagues have filed, isn't it?
We get, if you watch NewsX regularly, and the debates I do and Meenakshi does and our colleagues do, we're talking about all the things the country needs to do. So you're talking about semiconductors that need to build, and the solar power plants that need to be built, and the high-tech AI and all of this thing. But you need to have a pulse that we simultaneously live in a country where people, especially women, had to spend a large part of their day figuring out when and where they would go to the bathroom and how they would collect water to do cooking and washing. In the telecast we did 2 days ago, Meenakshi, just imagine someone, and this is what the ladies were telling us, that most of them would not go to the bathroom during the course of a day. Now imagine if anybody is watching this telecast and I ask all the ladies that you are not allowed, you can't go to the bathroom during the day, you have to hold it until the sun sets. And your life is revolving around this. It is unimaginable for a lot of people, of course, who are watching English language content in our national national telecast here. Water is the next big thing. That tap in your house or right outside your house, which is either replacing you having to go to a nearby nalla or nearby creek or nearby pond, or replacing you having to go to the village well, or even replacing you to go to the village hand pump. Okay? It is water on demand, the 3 times or 4 times a day that it's coming, changes your life. So the generation now born in these families, the daughters and the bahus, do not have to structure their lives X number of hours per day on just figuring out a basic necessity like water. Now, it's all very good when we have this theory. It's all very good when you make a speech. It's all very good when when mantris rattle off statistics. What we are doing here is a dipstick test. Go to several places in the country, okay, and just put a dipstick in, and what is the sampling telling you? Is it exhaustive? No, it is anecdotal for sure. But the sampling is telling you of random people that you're speaking to, okay, that are they getting these taps, and do the taps have regular water? Is another thing to put the pipe and not give any water, and is the water clean enough for them to use, to drink and use for cooking? Basically, maybe you boil it or something. And if the dipstick is telling you that yes, all these 10 crore taps that are supposed to be being laid, okay, which is just a statistic, that these people are finding water which is good enough for human consumption, that they are happy with, and that has dramatically changed their lives. That's all we intended to do here. And the dipstick test has not come out with crud, it's not come out with zunk, it's not come out with all lies and nonsense. Has it come out with perfection? No. But it's giving us a little bit of confidence. You and I have gone through the raw feeds of all of these things. Yes. This is just the edited packages coming on here. And overall, vast majority of the places where we have just done a dipstick test, the people have got a tap in the past few years. It has regular enough water for them not to have to worry about it. It's a great start.
Well, absolutely. And Sumitra Goenka, if you could come in here, since we are speaking about how the lives of these people literally changed by simply getting water in their kitchen, clean water which they can drink. Again, as Rishabh also said, people in urban areas, English television viewers, perhaps are oblivious of the trials and tribulations of those living in the rural areas. The fact that these people are getting clean drinking water, the fact that you just heard their testimonies, how important do you think it is that we highlight it today at the beginning of the year, Sumitra Goenka?
Yeah, I think this is a very important subject which you have highlighted, and I completely agree with what Rishabh said. You know, we stay in urban areas where we are born with a tap inside the house, but whenever I have visited several rural areas, which I have got a chance to do due to my work, so there I have seen that people, and especially the job relates, this job is completely done by the woman. You will never find men actually walking for kilometers and fetching water. I remember an incident where I had gone to Porbandar and in Kutch and Bhuj area around 10 years or 12 years ago, along with my parents, and or maybe more, I think 17, 18 years back, because my son was also not born that time. So when I had gone there, I had seen a severe distress in that area related to water. People were walking with matkas on their head, as well as the water which was available was salty. Even when you wash your face, you will find that the water was salty. You were not able to even drink that water. Is something beyond, like for a person who's coming from the city. But people were living in those harsh conditions, and there was nothing. But over the years, we are seeing that the Jal Jeevan Mission, which Prime Minister Modi has introduced, there have been several instances. You have taken interviews of several people, and definitely it is reaching to maximum rural households. From what I believe, there is a dashboard also. The ministry has a dashboard which they are monitoring from time to time, and it makes a lot of difference because it relates to security for the lady who is going maybe at night to the toilet or to fetch water. In villages you didn't have electricity as well. Even today we have concerns regarding that. So it is a matter of security and safety for the women. There are other schemes like the Ujjwala Yojana. So if you look at all the combination of projects which have happened for the women, I think somewhere Prime Minister has seen all these things which have happened in the rural sector. Maybe from he has seen his mother or the other women, and he has also worked in the rural areas. So from this the inspiration has come, and a lot has changed. Today when we go to rural areas, we have taps in houses.
Yeah.
We have regular water supply, though I wouldn't say that it has reached each and every household, but definitely the things are much better today, and the woman can live a life
Right.
of dignity. Dignity is something which was missing when
Yeah.
these women were fetching water, going walking kilometers, and they were also kind of going to toilets only at certain times, when because the open defecation was there, and these ladies had no dignity at that time. So these
Absolutely.
are very important things which a person coming from urban area will not understand, but definitely people who stay in rural areas or who have seen this happening will definitely relate to it.
Well,
And
certainly,
the
ma'am,
change-
as you rightly said, women's empowerment is, of course, a byproduct of these schemes. And we saw the testimonies of those women as well, talking about how elated they feel when they get something as simple as drinking clean water in their house. Anand Arya, as an environmentalist, if you could come in here and help us understand the environmental impact, how schemes like these also help the environment. At the end of the day, we have 56% coverage of rural households under the Har Ghar Jal scheme, sir.
You see, I think it is probably one of the best programs which the government of India ever thought of, like a Har Ghar Mein toilet. And I think it is something which is absolutely a part of your fundamental right to life. Now, clean water is absolutely essential. Now, I'm sure that once you have taken up a mission and you will put it, even let's say the full bureaucracy into this to deliver the objectives of this, which as I can see from whoever I talk to. Now the question which essentially is, what will be the source of water? Do we have enough water that will reach which will enable the government to deliver हर घर में जल, नल से जल, वो डिलीवर कैसे होगा? Now, for this, you know, we are an extremely lucky country in the sense that we get approximately 30 inches of rain across the country, you know, on an average basis. Now, this and of this, what we are utilizing is just about 20%. So, if we increase, say, from 20 to 30% or 40%, there's no shortage of water. Besides this, you know, over the ages, today we have the whole country covered with a source of water through the wetlands. As per my data, the data that I have collected, there are 7,57,000 wetlands in the country. Now, unfortunately, despite and this is one source which has to be treated, with kid gloves. It has to be protected, and this will give you enough water, because, and this is something which the government has, to my knowledge, has completely failed in doing, despite the orders from the National Green Tribunal, as also from Supreme Court.
So I've taken your point, sir. You say that there are multiple sources of providing clean water and they can also be tapped into. But Professor C.S. Dubey, as a water expert, sir, if you could come in here, it's a step in the right direction. I'm sure as an environmentalist, you know, sir is right that there is a long way to go. The potential is there, it has to be tapped into. But the fact that 56% rural households today, when the scheme was launched just a few years ago, are getting fresh and clean water, that itself is an achievement which needs to be highlighted and celebrated today, isn't it, Professor Dubey?
Yes, I'm very happy to see that the program which was started last year in the as a mission program for Har Ghar Mein Jal or Nal with a pipeline. I think this has really worked, you know, because you have to plan that how you have to give the water to each and every person. I think especially we should commend the role of the government along with the, you know.
Okay, we seem to have lost that line. I will go back to Professor Dubey, but Rishabh, if you could come in here, and I want to go back to the testimonies, you know, the people we spoke to. Sumitra Goenka was also highlighting how one of the most beneficial byproducts of these schemes is women's empowerment. I remember the other feeds also we had seen, one after the other, you know, women speaking to NewsX, talking about how their lives have changed. They don't have to go out defecate in the open. They don't have to go out and look for water. They have a key to their own house. All of this because, of course, of these umbrella schemes which have been launched under the Modi regime.
You know, I mean, for me, it was a slightly emotive experience because this is India. This is, if you're a proud Indian, and then these are the people of India. There's a vast majority of Indians, and to actually see them feeling positive about something. You know, generally, you know, we've all gotten sort of cliched into saying that when you go out, everybody's always complaining because something is always wrong. Now, I'm not saying everything is fixed, but some things are less wrong. Yes. Now, I don't know the statistics, Meenakshi. So the statistics say that there were 13% rural households that had water taps. Now it's 56%.
Yes.
Now the statistics is very easy. Okay, it was 2.3 crores. Now it's 10 crores. Now I have no way of measuring 10 crore houses. So I have to take the official statistics at their word. But what I can do is just do, like I said, do a dipstick test, okay, or a few places, and see that in these places have they actually got the taps. Now obviously you are doing it systematically. First you are laying the pipe and the tap is the first part of the problem, okay. Connecting it to a larger system of supply is the second part of the problem. Ensuring that larger system of supply has water available regularly, and by regularly I mean at least 3 times a day, 6 hours a day, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, 2 hours in the evening, okay. Whether that water is of a potable quality is another part of the problem. And then of course, if our ponds and rivers are going to be polluted and we have to clean them up, the problem is gargantuan and it's going to take lifetimes to solve it. Okay, and nobody's suggesting that in the next 2-3 months everything is going to be solved, but in a very practical essence of the right steps happening in the right energy at the right speed and at the right visionary scale, you are now seeing the dipstick test is coming out not with crud, it's coming out with good news, good reports. Yes, I've got it. Yes, it works. Yes, the water is potable. Ha, me too. I also got it. My neighbor also got it. So this is the only thing I'm basing this on what I've heard and seen from these people. The statistics, of course, you can download from the ministry website.
Well, absolutely. And, we don't want to be fixated on the statistics. So, Mitra Goenka, you were talking about women empowerment. It's not just one woman. It's the entire family, the whole unit which gets empowered, right? When you get something as basic as water in your house, isn't it?
We have to understand that a lot of hours of this lady goes into fetching water. So maybe she has to walk 10 to 12 kilometers also. Yeah. So understand how much time and energy gets invested into this. Plus, when you get water which is unclean, or when you have to fetch water from unreliable sources or contaminated areas, because you need water. Water is Jeevan. So if you are forced to get water from sources or places which are not highly contaminated, then there is a chance of getting diseases also. So entire family is going to drink that water. So definitely there is going to be a lot of issues related to health. Secondly, now since the woman has more time in hand, she can do some other things also. Probably she can work somewhere, or she can focus on the children. There are many options. But all these things were not possible earlier because the woman had to really take this onus on herself to fetch the water. She had to walk kilometers to get this water. And what has happened today, I think, is real empowerment. It is really a lot of benefit to the woman. Though I feel very sorry and sad that in spite of achieving our independence so many years ago, we have still not got water to 100% rural households, and today we are at 56%. But this is a beginning, and I hope before 2024 or by 2025, all the households and all the women will get clean drinking water for their families, because this is extremely important. And let us all join hands together to make sure that this happens, because this is for the future of the country. The death rate will come down, the health of the children, the family, everything. It is going to affect everything.
Yeah,
the future of India is going to get affected.
Absolutely. And Har Ghar Nal, Har Ghar Jal. That's the aim of the government by 2025. It's a step in the right direction. We've shown you, of course, 2 ground reports from Uttar Pradesh. And now we will move to Haryana, Palwal. Let's take a look at the progress which has been made on ground there.
The next report on the Jal Jeevan mission has been filed from Palwal in Haryana, where we spoke to the beneficiaries. Let's take a look at this report.
अब सरकार ने जल जीवन मिशन के तहत प्रत्येक घर को नल के माध्यम से कनेक्शन लगाए गए ताकि सभी को शुद्ध और स्वच्छ पानी मिले। तो ये काम लगभग 100% कंप्लीट हो चुका है, और ताकि सभी लोगों को पानी घर पर ही उपलब्ध हो गया है, ताकि पहले किसी प्रकार की कोई दिक्कत नहीं है। अब पानी घर पर ही सभी लोगों को उपलब्ध है, ताकि सब अपना घर का कार्य कर सकें। और उन पर कनेक्शन और टूटी भी लगा के दी गई, ताकि लोग पानी यूज़ करने के बाद पानी को वेस्टेज ना हो, और कनेक्शन का अपना यूज़ करने के बाद पानी को बंद कर दें।
कितना अभी तक ये काम पूरा हो चुका है? कितने गाँवों में ये स्कीम पहुंचाई जा चुकी है जिले पलवल में?
पलवल जिले में लगभग 259 पंचायतें हैं, तो उन्होंने लगभग 100% काम कंप्लीट हो चुका है। सब में पानी के जो कनेक्शन हैं, जिन गलियों में लाइन नहीं थी, और सरकार द्वारा जल जीवन मिशन के तहत उन गलियों में लाइन बिछाई गई, और जिन लोगों के पानी के कनेक्शन नहीं थे तो उन लोगों को सरकार द्वारा फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट पानी के कनेक्शन लगा के दिए गए हैं।
आपके यहाँ पे जल जीवन मिशन के तहत नल लगाए गए हैं, किस तरह की स्कीम है सरकार की है?
सही है, वैसे तीनों टाइम पानी आता है, सुबह दोपहर शाम को।
अच्छा, किस तरह का पानी है? मीठा है, खारा है? पहले कितनी समस्या होती थी पानी को लेकर, जैसे कपड़े धोने में, बर्तन धोने में?
पहले थोड़ा कम आता था पानी, अब तीनों टाइम आता है
जी। तो क्या कहेंगे कि कितना बिल आपका इसका जाता है महीने का?
बिल तो एक बार ही आया था बस 60 रुपये 1 साल का, अब नहीं आया।
अब की बार नहीं आया? तो कैसी स्कीम मानते हैं आपको सरकार की?
सरकार की तो अच्छी स्कीम है, पानी घर बैठे मिल रहा है।
आपके यहाँ गांव में जल जीवन मिशन के तहत नल लगाए हैं, पानी आता है आपके यहाँ हर महीने? रोज आता है? किस तरह का पानी है? मीठा है, खारा है? क्या सुविधा आपको सरकार की तरफ से दी जा रही है? कैसी स्कीम है ये?
सही है, पानी की ओर दे दो।
हाँ, तो यानी पहले गांव में पानी की समस्या थी, अब क्या है?
पहले तो नल पे चलावे स्कूल पे तब पानी।
सब घर पे होगा। अच्छा, अब घर पे पानी आता है।
Well, this was the ground report from Haryana. Professor C.S. Dubey, water expert, also with us. Professor Dubey, what do you have to say about this ground report, what you just saw? It looked like that these people felt that their social status was also rising simply by getting clean water in their house. There was a similar survey which was conducted earlier. It showed, of course, a very similar result. And now we can see the ground reality in front of our eyes.
You know, we have... I am also in the university as a professor and vice chancellor. You know, nearby 5 villages, you know, we have adopted the 5 villages, and we have seen there that previously the water was not coming due. There were, you know, earthen dams made and things were made over there by the forest department or the PWD or others, but you know, they were hardly there. They were getting water from there because there was nothing kind of a maintenance system or that. But now with the, you know, that Sarovar Yojana of Pradhan Mantri and others, there are things which are being developed and new ponds are coming up, new water harvesting, especially the rainwater harvesting, more stress is being given. Watershed, as has been told, and wetlands, as has been told, are being slowly worked out. You know, the people are becoming more conscious on all these things.
Yeah.
Once they become more conscious on all these things, I'm sure that they will love to know how to conserve the water, and once they conserve the water and use it, because water is going to be the more costlier than petrol in future. So if you don't understand, they are slowly understanding these things, and they are getting water now in their house, so they have to be very careful. And I think this is a very good development in the country, because that will lead to a lot of employment generation, source of other things as well.
And you know, since you mentioned better usage of wetlands, of rainwater harvesting, that was a point which Anand Arya was trying to make earlier. Anand Arya, the scheme may not be perfect, but at least it's a step in the right direction. That's something we should concede today. Yes, a lot more can be achieved, must be done. But isn't it phenomenal that you have millions of people, happy faces, who you just saw, testimonies which you just heard of how lives of people at the grassroots level living in rural areas has changed completely, 360-degree turn, simply by getting clean water in their house, something which people like you and me take for granted, sir.
Absolutely, you know, there is no doubt about that. You know, Har Ghar toilet, Har Ghar pani, I think it is something which is absolutely was required to be done and has been done with a great degree of success. But as far as the Har Ghar Jal is important, I think what we need, you know, the wetlands are, you know, the rivers are not passing through every village. But every village or every 5 kilometers, every 3 kilometers, every 2 square kilometers, you have the wetlands. As I mentioned, 7,57,000 wetlands. And also they cover 1,52,00,000 hectares of land. Now the value, you put it, the value of water, just say at 15 paise. And this is a natural water that is coming to you, and it is a filtered water. It's filtered by the ecosystem itself. Even the, you know, heavy metals are, you know, taken out by the wetlands. And this gives us a sense of security as far as the water is concerned.
Okay.
And this is one source. I would urge the government to seriously protect and use, because this is a renewable resource. And the, I know, as per my calculations, the amount of water which is recharged into the ground every year, just based on 30 inches of rain, is 66,90,622 crore per year.
Okay.
Mind you, it is per year, and this is a free resource for you. Just, you see, I could care less. You know, it's a pipeline, it's a one-time expense and maybe some maintenance. You know, creating tanks, etc. I mean, all one-time expenses with including this thing. But the real need is, how do you access the water? Where does the water come from? We are fortunate to have rain spread across the country, even though this is, you know, we are in a monsoon country where the rain takes place 4 months in a year. But nevertheless, these wetlands I mean, are the
Very
ones
slow.
which are critical to the success of this mission.
Okay. Okay. Fine, point taken. Rishabh, would you like to add something to this? Anand Arya, of course, talking about other sources which
Yeah,
can
because
be tapped
Meenakshi, the deal is, because what are we here to discuss? Okay, we are here to discuss the reality check that we are not running away from the fact that this country, the globe at large, is going to be and is dealing with a perpetual water crisis. There is a water shortage. Anand Arya will also tell you the statistics that there are water surplus districts where you have flooding every year. Then you have water deficit districts where there's a drought every year. Okay, you can see the pattern that there is a tendency, there are certain areas. Now, whether you do canals, river linkages, these are much grander and bigger things to figure out. Global warming, how that's affecting water pattern, rainfall pattern. All of that has to be figured out, because in the end, what Anand Arya and all your guests are telling you is absolutely right. You have to have the water before you distribute it. But the point here was different. Here we are 80 years later, and the life of some of these rural women was no different than it was under the British Raj. It was no different than it was under the Mughals. You had to go to the bathroom in the khet, and you had to go to the pond to take a matka to fill water. No different in 200 years. So while the pipe laying, you have your, whether you have your GI pipes or not, today you have these plastic pipes, whatever had to be done, it hadn't been done. Now it is being done. Okay. Now, yes, will somebody who now gets water easily, will they probably misuse it a little bit? Could happen. So now do they have to have awareness? But I am just trying to say that when we talk about 5G and we talk about semiconductors, and are we going into space and going to Mars and AI in a country that is doing all of these things also, the disconnected reality that for a large percentage of the population, they were still living in the middle ages, in medieval times. They had not progressed from medieval times. Now India can only become a non-developing, developed country if these basics are catered off. Now you are beginning to look at it, and my supposition is not that in urban areas you can have all the water pipelines and taps, but still the tanker has to come because the pipeline breaks, pilferage is done, abuse is done, industries are misusing water, industries are misusing even water disposal. All these problems have not gone away. But the crucial thing that the vast majority of people, 50% of the population that still lives in the villages, of which 25% women were having to take the bigger load of providing this service to their families, they were living in the Middle Ages. And that's laughable in this age and stage. And all we've done is a dipstick test. Put a stick here, what have we come up with? Have we come up with nonsense? Failure, no water, no water, no water, no water. And it was no water, no water, water. We're coming back to you and saying, listen, in 9 out of the 10 places we've been to, none of these taps function. There is no water. All the people forget giving dua or giving gali. That's not what we found.
Yes. And the ground reality, as you rightly mentioned, is clearly visible from these reports which we have filed. People living in the rural areas talking about how their lives have changed by getting water in their household. And Sumitra Goenka, since we are talking about the lives of people changing, I think you mentioned and touched upon a very important point, and that is overall health and mortality rate also. The health of the society, that also depends on clean drinking water. In fact, surveys show that ever since the scheme came and it was implemented on ground, the number of waterborne related illnesses also have been reduced.
There is a direct correlation with these things, I think, because when you get contaminated water, you are bound to get diseases which arise from contamination of water. Also, the water which you get through taps are treated or tested by relevant authorities, maybe the municipality or the relevant rural authorities, and accordingly you can be assured that there is a particular standard of what kind of water you are going to get in your tap. So when you get water from unauthorized places or contaminated water comes to your home, then the chances of several health related issues cropping up will be very high. I wanted to highlight one more point, that this is the first time ever that a Jal Shakti ministry was formed. Two ministries, one is the Ganga river rejuvenation, or I think the Ministry of Ganga, and the second is the Jal Shakti Ministry. These are two crucial ministries which were formed, which was never heard of before. And I think this shows that the kind of commitment that this government intends to do. Now, Rishabh was talking about some implementation parts, like the the pipe may be broken, or there may be some issues. So these are all implementation issues. But at the same time, the intent of the government was very clear.
No, I know, Sumitra ji, sorry, I'm going to disagree. Intent has always been good. I'm not to say that previous government didn't have the intent. It is execution.
Now, but I
none
would
of us
say
can, none of us here are disputing whether every woman deserves a tap.
The water did not reach people on a mission.
No, that's not what I said. I said the opposite. I said we've done a
happening.
dipstick test, and when you do a dipstick test, it's all anecdotal. Okay, I can't do the statistics because I have no way of measuring 10 crore of houses. Okay, you don't either,
absolutely.
and none of our colleagues who are sitting here have a way of going to 10 crore houses. It's not feasible for us. Only government can do that, and whether you trust government or not, statistics people can take with a pinch of salt. I have just done a dipstick test, and the dipstick test hasn't come out with nonsense. कि जी पेपर पे तो बड़ी अच्छी स्कीम थी. मंत्री साहब का जब हमने इंटरव्यू लिया लास्ट वीक at the munch, and he told us the same statistics, 10 crores, very good. But when we went to the ground, what did we find? And we found some positivity that these people are saying that yes, in the past 3 years we've got our taps, and the taps have regular water, not once a week it works. Regular water 2 to 3 times a day. Okay. Now, does that mean in urban areas also we don't have water problems? I can tell you, I live in a locality in South Delhi, we have water problems. So the water problem is not solved, but this logic of people living like they were 500, 600 years ago, कि आपको नहर में जाके मटका लेके आप पानी लेके आ रहे हो. I mean, this is a place where in Delhi where you see grand water structures that were built, reservoirs that were built over hundreds of years to provide water. And for lots of these people, their lives have not changed. You still have to go to the matka, to still go to hand pump. I mean, come on. I mean, hand pump. I mean, after a point, we have to move away from these things.
So I can also relate to an incident where 2 years back, I was in Uttarakhand, very near to a place, Haridwar. It is on a hilltop, and there was no water there. But what I heard just recently is the water connection pipe is reaching that place, and that it's a temple on top of a hill. And today water connection is reaching there. So this is through the same policy that we are getting the water. So this is really a great thing which is happening, because otherwise you can imagine somebody has to hike down from a hill, collect water from down, and then pick it up, because you don't even have proper roads to go to those areas.
And since,
so this is something which is remarkable, and I think the government should continue focusing on
and since you are mentioning
implementation of the scheme properly as well, execution of the scheme properly.
Execution is extremely crucial. But end of the day, since you're mentioning Uttarakhand, I'm from Uttarakhand. The small anecdote which I'd also like to add, I actually own land there, and Rishabh, why we're not building a house? Because there's no water connection.
No water.
There's no water connection. What will I do building a house? My parents are 80 years old. They can't hike all the way to a hilltop, get water, come back home. And that's one of the reasons. If Professor Dubey, you could come in here, which this also shows us that a lot of activity, like economic activity also, revolves around basic water connection.
I totally agree with the colleagues here, that one thing is there, that there is a direct connection of the people, of the what program is running to the people, in his house, That is very satisfying to me, because once the things reaches 3.46 lakh crores rupees being, spent on this kind of thing, which is a huge amount, which is a real thing, which is a basic necessity of the system, क्षिति जल पावन गगन समीरा, इसी से बना अधम शरीरा. तो हमारा शरीर भी जो है पानी की जरूरत है ही है उसको. और पानी, ये सब चीजें, अगर ये पांच चीजें पंचतत्व अगर हमको मिल जाते हैं सब ढंग से, और सब चीजें ठीक रहेंगी, तो हमारा शरीर, जैसे मैडम कह रही हैं सुमित्रा गोयनका, सब कुछ सही रहेगा, सब हमारे बीमारियां कम होंगी, चीजें अच्छी होंगी. द मोस्ट इम्पोर्टेंट थिंग इज कि ये पानी जो है, अगर मान लीजिए एक बार नल घर पे पहुंच गया, तो पानी तो उसमें लाना ही पड़ेगा, किसी तरह से लाना है. इसलिए हमें उसे क्या सोचना है, जो 3.46 लाख करोड़ 50,000 करोड़ अब खर्च हो रहे हैं, ये जो जब इतना पैसा खर्च होके चीज आ रही है, मैं कहना चाहता हूँ कि पहले जो थी प्रॉब्लम्स होती थी, पहले जो था कैनाल्स बनती थी, रिवर्स से कैनाल्स प्रोड्यूस होती थी, इंजीनियरिंग में बिल्कुल कोई प्लानिंग नहीं होती थी, फिर कैनाल से जो है वो बाद में गंदे नाले बन जाते, जैसे ड्रेनेज, ये आपका नजफगढ़ नाला है या ड्रेनेज है, ये सब चीजें मुझे लगता है कि अब सुधरेंगी इस प्रोग्राम के साथ.
Okay, there will be a massive improvement, and in fact, if Anand Arya, you could come in here, sir. Rainwater harvesting, other issues which you have mentioned earlier, of course, they need to be looked into. But once again, end of the day, lives have been changed. Hundreds and thousands of people, of course, are able to live a life of dignity thanks to the Har Ghar Jal scheme.
As Rishabh says that he has taken a dipstick only for this particular scheme. And therefore, I think...
Actually, it's not just, I'm sorry for interrupting you, sir. It's for multiple schemes, and this is one of the schemes.
Yeah, it's one of the schemes.
Yes.
And similarly, I think there is no reason why this scheme should not be implemented on a war footing. Because this has got tremendous economic value, it has got tremendous health value, and it has to be done. Look at it. I mean, I personally have the experience of the last 10 years, let us say, where I have visited practically the whole of the rural area in the NCR. And from where we used to be afraid of going near a pond, today there is no open defecation at all. And I think similarly, water is an absolute must for every family, and especially for the women. So we need to have this. Kudos to the government for implementing a scheme like this. Now it has to be executed so that the last house gets the water, and once every household gets used to this.
Okay. Though on the contrary, I've taken your points, but on the contrary, I think it's been done on war footing, because 56% households, I mean, if you go by government data, has been covered, and it's in a matter of what, about 2 to 3 years. Isn't that a phenomenal achievement?
Like I said, I don't know. I have no way. So there are agencies that specialize in doing non-governmental social surveys in which they check on these things. I hope they would go out district to district and actually give out. And all those reports will come out with lacunae, which if you come to my house, Meenakshi, okay, if I come to your house, there will be some electric socket that doesn't work. You might also have a plumbing issue in your house, okay. So there are always going to be problems. But the only simple point I'm trying to make over here is, in the end, when we talk about GDP growth, global GDP growth, India GDP, what does GDP growth means? The world is the same size, no? The world isn't growing. So what is growing? It is activity which is growing. Now you can actually come in, you have a family, you have a profession, you can come and do this job here because you don't spend 3 hours a day. Tomorrow if the water connection in your house fails, you will have to take a day off to sort out water, okay, maybe a week off to sort out water. So just imagine that now there are a bunch of people who are spending X number of hours per day, in the millions of woman hours were being spent devoted to one particular task which could be automated with 200-year-old technology. Laying a pipe is not new technology. Okay, using gravity-fed water system is not new technology. Even a water pump is not new technology. Okay, yes, water processing, cleaning, etc. The kinds of machines that sir makes with Kent RO, which we have in our, I have certainly in my house. Okay, that UV, WOV, this new technology. But providing a pipe is not new technology. So you have empowered these people and perhaps leveraged, unleashed millions of woman hours which can be devoted to other economic activity, and hopefully we'll see the the impact of this in times to come.
The impact, of course, will be seen, but right now let's also take a look at some ground reports from Gwalior. Have the lives of people in Madhya Pradesh changed or not owing to the scheme? Let's listen in.
प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी की हर घर नल जल योजना के चलते जो तमाम सारे हितग्राही हैं, लाखों करोड़ों हितग्राही यहाँ पर जो है पानी की समस्या से जूझ रहे थे, लेकिन अब चूँकि जैसे ही हर घर नल जल योजना जब प्रारंभ हुई उसके बाद में तमाम सारे हितग्राहियों का ये कहना है कि हमारे जीवन में काफ़ी सारी जो है परेशानियाँ थी। पानी के चलते दूर दूर से पानी लेकर आना पड़ता था और ख़ास तौर पर महिलाओं को यहाँ पर पानी के कारण परेशानी का सामना करना पड़ता था, वो यहाँ पर दूर हुई है। बात करने की कोशिश करते हैं, यहाँ पर तमाम सारे लोग हैं। इससे पहले मैं आपको दिखाना चाहूँगा कि जो हर घर नल जल योजना है उसके आप पाइप देखेंगे तो किस तरीके से जो है नगर निगम और तमाम सारे जो प्रशासन है उसने पाइप भी बिछाए हैं और जिससे कि ऊपर पहाड़ पर भी जो है पानी जा सकता है।
हमारा क्षेत्र काफ़ी गरीबी क्षेत्र रहा है, यहाँ पानी की बहुत समस्या थी, लोगों को पहाड़ों पे से जल भर भर के लेके आना पड़ता था और माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी की जो हर घर जल योजना है उसके अंतर्गत अब हर घर में नल कनेक्शन है और किसी को कोई परेशानी नहीं है, सब खुश हैं उनकी इस योजना से।
तो यहाँ पर सब लोग खुश हैं और आप यहाँ पर देख भी रहे हैं कि हर घर में जो है पानी यहाँ पर नज़र आ रहा है। और भी लोगों से बात कर लेते हैं। आप बताएं किस तरीके से देखते हैं, क्योंकि लगातार इससे पहले ऊपर पहाड़ पर पानी नहीं जा पाता था। अब जब नल लग गए हैं घर घर में तो किस तरीके की परेशानी दूर हुई?
पिछले 10-15 वर्षों में पानी की विकट समस्या थी। लोग 1-1 किलोमीटर दूर से पानी भर के लाते थे, लेकिन जब से जल घर योजना के अंतर्गत नल लगे हैं, पानी पर्याप्त आ रहा है।
बिल्कुल पानी पर्याप्त आ रहा है, इनका ये कहना है। आप बताएं सर किस तरीके से देखते हैं, क्योंकि इससे पहले पहाड़ पे भी पानी नहीं जा पाता था, घर में पानी नहीं आ रहा था, दूर जाना पड़ता था महिलाओं को। तो अब किस
महिलाएं दूर जाती हैं, पानी बनने, अब तो घर पे बैठे पानी मिल रहा है।
किसी तरह की कोई परेशानी?
कोई परेशानी नहीं है भैया,
बिल्कुल। तो किसी तरह की कोई परेशानी नहीं है, लेकिन और भी बात कर लेते हैं इनसे। दादा एक बार बताएं मेरे को, पानी वगैरह आपके घर में आ रहा है क्या?
हाँ बिल्कुल आ रहा है, पहले से बहुत ज़्यादा सुविधा हो गई है।
अच्छा, इससे पहले क्या होता था?
इससे पहले तो आए दिन बस पानी के लिए बाल्टी ले घूमना पड़ता था, कभी इधर कभी उधर।
प्रधानमंत्री हर घर नल जल योजना का किस तरीके से धन्यवाद करना चाहेंगे, क्योंकि इससे पहले परेशानी भी होती थी, अब चूँकि आपके यहाँ पर पानी भी आ रहा है, नल चल रहे हैं तो
हाँ, इसके पहले जो परेशानी थी वो तो हमारी ख़त्म ही हो चुकी है। इसके लिए मैं केंद्र सरकार का जो है धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूँ कि उन्होंने जो घर घर नल योजना चालू की है, उससे महिलाओं को, आम लोगों को सबको सुविधा मिली।
तो सब लोगों को सुविधा मिली है यहाँ पर। और ख़ास बात ये है कि प्रधानमंत्री हर घर नल जल योजना से कहीं ना कहीं जो महिलाएं थी उनको यहाँ पर परेशानी का सामना करना पड़ता था, वो ज़रूर यहाँ पर काफ़ी खुश नज़र आ रही हैं। लेकिन अहम बात यह है कि सबसे ज़्यादा ज़रूरी जीवन में पानी है, और पानी जो है कहीं ना कहीं जीवन के लिए बहुत ज़रूरी है। और सब ख़ास तौर पर जो महिलाएं जो दूर दूर से पानी लेके आती थी बाल्टी में, मटकों में, वो कहीं ना कहीं उनकी परेशानी दूर हुई है और हर घर में जल पहुंचा है। संजय शर्मा, इंडिया न्यूज़, ग्वालियर।
All right, we just heard really the reactions of people from Gwalior, Madhya Pradesh. So, Mr. Goenka, if you could come in here, this is exactly what you were talking about earlier, how the life of the entire unit, the women, the men of the family, the children, how their life changes completely by getting something as basic as water.
Yeah, I think Rishabh just highlighted the fact which I was also highlighting earlier when I said that the productive hours were lost earlier because the women had to go and fetch water. Today I can safely assume that since small children also used to accompany their mothers for getting water, now they can utilize that time by going to school or doing some other activity which is more important than doing such things like fetching water, which takes away 4 hours or 5 hours of your time one side. Also there are other issues with respect to the security. We know there are several women, recently we had heard an article where in Nasik or somewhere the woman died inside the well because, she had to go deep inside the well to fetch water. So there are instances like this which relate to security or risk to life also. If women have to travel long distances at odd hours, there are chances of rapes or other instances also where they are unsafe in that environment because there are challenges with respect to electricity as well. So I think this is overall a very good thing which has happened, and I hope more households get covered.
And you're right about that, Professor C.S. Dubey. If you could come in here, sir. End of the day, Har Ghar Jal, Har Ghar Nal may sound very simplistic. As one Nara election, which politicians give, it sounds great, but it's quite complicated, isn't it? The fact that it's not easy. I'm sure you would like to highlight at this point of time, it's not very easy to get those pipelines at millions of rural households, isn't it, sir?
You know, what I am thinking and what I understand with this is, as Madam has already said, things are doing well for women and other children, etc. But the most important thing is, we have heard the other time a woman saying that we get water 3 times.
Yeah.
Now, if you say 3 times, that means those who are not getting water 1 time, they are getting 3 times now. And that means there is some kind of a water balance being done to the system, whereby people were utilizing most of the water, wasting water, things doing like that. So if the water is balanced that way and it's been given to all in a proper manner, the way it is going on, that 3 times a day or 2 times a day, or wherever, and the amount of water required for per person, per capita person, I think that will be a great thing, because everybody in India will get water like that.
Yeah.
And I think this is where we need some kind of a studies and water balancing studies, that how everyone gets his water at the house itself.
And it's a very pertinent point which you say, if Anand Arya sir, you could come in here, you were earlier talking about, what more needs to be done. Of course, there's a long way to go. There's a lot more which the government needs to achieve. But end of the day, when 72% women in surveys which were conducted by independent agencies say they feel empowered, they feel safe and secure simply by getting water, tapped water inside their household, that itself is a commendable feat which has been achieved under the Modi government, isn't it, sir?
Definitely, there is no doubt about it. I mean, some of the policies of this government, conceiving of the policies and then making sure that these are executed and the benefit is available to the last person, I think have been totally commendable. And I would, agree with Rishabh that he is talking about dipstick. But what I'm saying is that if my personal experience of the toilet in every house is something to go by in the NCR, a rural area, then I have no doubt about it that the 56% of the households being covered across the country is something which is totally believable. And I would request, it will be my appeal to the government to take it on an absolutely war footing, so that, the women in the rural area particularly, and the other population in the rural area doesn't have to suffer at all for lack of water, which is part of your right to life. Without water, there is no life, and the life is guaranteed to us by the Constitution. So it is a government's responsibility also to really go, whole hog into this and see that the water is delivered. And I can assure you, based on my study about the availability of water in this country, there is no shortage at all. And for the foreseeable, this thing, even if everybody follows the United Nations laid down criteria of per capita consumption per day, we can, and I am sure this government has decided with this mission that it can deliver, and I only wish that this government will go whole hog into protecting the wetlands, because they produce.
Well, absolutely. So protecting wetlands, that's a priority. Which you think should be, of course, taken care of by the government at a war footing. But then overall, if we simply speak about the Har Ghar Jal scheme, end of the day, sir, it needs to be highlighted that 56% households have been covered. The lives of rural women have changed, and that we have been able to show, of course, showcase that by these testimonies, state after state, women after women repeating the same story. Har Ghar Jal. That's the aim and mission of the Modi government. We are halfway there. We hope that 100% coverage is achieved at the earliest. End of the day, it doesn't just empower one woman or one household. It has, of course, a multifaceted impact on the entire economy, a very positive impact on the economy of the country. For now, I thank all of you for joining us on this extremely riveting telecast. It's a wrap on this bulletin. Another very interesting debate lined up on the other side. Don't go anywhere.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.